Hi, so in this session we're going to be creating some sort of graphical user interface. Now this is one version that I did. It's very basic. It's not a lot of thought has gone into it, as you can see, but all I'm interested in just going over is using shape layers and creating something that looks kind of like this. Now the one which we'll actually be creating due to time is a more simple version, which is going to be this one. So we've got one or two shape layers going on, some alpha mats, we've got a little expression going on, a loop expression, and we're going to be creating something like this. It's just an asset for one of our future green screen projects. So let's pop out of this and let's have a look at our After Effects file. So you can tell there's a lot more going on inside this one, but this is the one we'll be doing. So first of all, I've got, just turn all these off, a background layer with a grid effect on there, animated, so it kind of goes, so it kind of travels down like so. Then I've got this box which I created and used the add blending mode. Then I've got this bar, which if we look at the keyframes, I've set 2 initial keyframes for the position, and then I set a looping expression which I'll go through later, and then it just goes up and down for the whole duration. Next I have got this box again, but it's just used as an alpha mat, so we won't enable that. Then we've got this access granted box which fades on as if someone's put their hand on there for scanning. Then I've got this top bar, and then there's just this sort of random text Psycorp, but you can make your own logo. You can, spend a lot more time thinking about the actual text, get some sci-fi text, or put a logo up there, put a time up there for some random text, whatever you want. Just to go through this one, you can see on the left, this hand scanner box is a lot smaller. I also I've got these sort of finger scanners. They're very simple. They're just some hexagons with a wiggle expression on the rotation, so they're just sort of scanning the fingerprints. On the right I've got a box and a load of sort of generic computer text which I've copied and pasted off the internet, and it scrolls up and it's got a sort of alpha mat box around there so it doesn't go over the edges. And then I've got this sort of just this face of a guy that fades in as the access is granted, and I've got these random buttons which I made on the side as well. So use this as ideas. Go Google sci-fi GUI in Google Images, and there's loads of ideas on here, way better than this one. I rushed this one, making it really fast, didn't really think about the design too much or the colour scheme, just had it as an example. So the one we're going to be creating is this one, and so I'll go through with you how to do that. So I'm going to go composition, new composition, let's name it GUI hand scanner, and I'll call it 3 because this is third time. We'll go to HD TV 1080 25, that's 25 frames per second now, and we'll make it 10 seconds long, and click OK. So first thing I want to do is create a new solid. Now there's 2 ways of doing it: layer, new, solid, or you can right click in here, new, solid, or you can do Control Y as well. So a number of ways. We'll call this BG for background, go with a blue colour like that, and click OK. Now I want to add a grid to this, so let's type in the effects and presets, grid, and click and drag the grid onto this solid. I want to do the size from width and height sliders, so I can make it, let's make it 20 by 20. And there you go. Now let's make the colour a sort of dark blue, or maybe a little bit of a bright blue, and then hit the blend-in mode to multiply, so we've got it on top, and then you can play around with this colour, maybe make it darker like so. So now this is being multiplied on top of our blue solid. You can also invert the grid to go for that kind of look if you want to. I'm not going to, so let's stick with that. Now in order to animate the grid going down, we want to hit the stop watch for the anchor at the beginning and then come forward to the end and then move it down like so. Okay, just click and drag this value, something like that. Let's just put it at 1080, so it animates down between these, something like that. It's fine. Next, so what have we got in this one? We've got this box. Let's start with this box. So I'm simply going to make sure that this layer isn't selected. I'm going to get my rectangle tool and I'm going to click and drag, and I want a box like that. So let's have a look at the different blending modes. Let's have a look at overlay. Actually, I think overlay is going to work. What about add? Let's have a look at add. Now let's go for overlay. Okay, something like that. So that's our box. You can give it a fill if you want, a stroke if you want, and maybe play around. If you do give it a stroke very quickly, let's say we give it a big stroke like so. We're going to select this first, sorry. If we do give it a stroke, what you can do is go into the rectangle, come down to the stroke and add some dashes, and then make them bigger like so. Do something like that, make them really big, so then you've got just two like that, and maybe change the offset so you've got something that looks a bit like that. You don't have to, I'm not going to. I'm just going to turn those dashes off, and I'm going to turn this stroke off. I don't want it. Okay. So what I want to do next is rename this, so it's hand scan box. Okay, I'm now going to Control D and duplicate this rectangle, but I'm going to size it down, click the point so you can go like that, and I'm going to hold, I was going to hold Control but I don't have to. So we want the bar to be somewhat like that. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a directional blur to this little bar, and all this will do is, if I increase this, you can see it just fades those edges by there. Let's have a look at add. Let's have a look at different blending modes to see what we might want to go for. If I take it to add and then make it a bright, or make it a blue, that's something more like we want. And I'm going to Control D and duplicate this, so we've got, you know, a bright one. And I'll increase the blur length on both of them to 50, so we've just got more of a blur over there. Now I'm going to shift and pre-compose these, Control Shift C, so that they're in the same one, and we'll go hand bar, let's just call it hand bar, click OK, and now we'll just want to set this back to, I think, what was it, add? Yeah. Okay, so we want to make some position keyframes first of all, so we'll go hit P and we'll put this right to the top. Okay, like so, so it's kind of just for there, overlaps a bit, sort of halfway. We'll set a keyframe, we'll come forward about, let's say come forward a second, and drag it all the way to the bottom so it sort of half overlaps the edge, like so. And now what we want to do is we want to give it a loop expression. So let's highlight both of these keyframes, hit Alt and click the stopwatch, and you want to type loop with all lowercase, and then out with a capital O, so LOOP capital OUT, and open brackets. You now want to write a little apostrophe or quote mark by there, and then ping pong and another quotation mark and close brackets, and that's basically gonna, that ping pong just like sort of back and forth between these two keyframes, and then click. So now if we click and drag, it just goes back and forth between them like so. However, the issue we've got is it's currently overlapping the edge, so what we're going to do is duplicate this hand scan box, place it above our hand bar, and we want to get our hand bar and say alpha mat hand scan box 2, so it'll use this as a border, a boundary, so it won't go over. Okay, so now we've got that and it looks pretty cool. What else did we have in here? We had this at the top, so let's go for that. What I'm going to do is get my pen tool and make sure nothing's selected here. I'm going to click shift click to get a diagonal, and shift click to get a straight line and another diagonal, and let's finish the shape. There we go. So let's name this, right click, rename top bar, and let's have a look at the, I don't think I want to use a blending mode for this, I just want to make a darker blue, something like that. And I also want to get some text, type something generic like Sci Corp. Have a look through the different, I want quite a thin font, something like that will do. And I also like to space it out like so, with this value by here. And let's make it black, something like that. Let's have a look at the blending modes, or let's make it a little bit grey first, like so. And now let's have a look at multiply, and let's alter the colour. Yeah, something like that. So it's just, yeah, there, that'll be good. Okay, so what else do we need? Let's fit this first. We need this access granted thing next. So what I'm going to do, we've got that animating. Let's first of all add about 5 seconds. Let's get our transparency, our opacity for our handbar. Hit T, and we're going to give it a keyframe of 100%. Come forward about half a second, and we're going to fade it out like so, as if it's just finished scanning the person's hand. The next thing we're going to do is create another shape layer. Make sure none of these are selected. Something like this. Come to the edge. Okay, let's choose a white, and let's have a look at overlay. That's fine. And we want to rename this access granted box, and we also want to get the font, some text. Sorry, click and type access granted, and let's make that white text. And let's have a look at the different fonts we could use. I'm not going to spend too long looking, but I want some sort of thick font. Let's have a look. Something like that will do. And let's drag it in. I'm going to highlight it again because I want to center this text. So paragraph. Oh, it is centered. There we go. Yeah, okay, cool. Let's just delete one of these spaces. There you go. So click, and maybe we can make this a little bit bigger. Let's go bigger like so. Okay, so what we want to do, as this handbar fades out, we then want these to start fading in. So let's select them both, hit T, drag it to 0, give it a keyframe, come forward about another half second, and drag it up to 100. So what we've got is, let's just let that preview through, is we've got this hand scanner just scanning, and then access granted fades on up, and we've got a very, very basic sort of graphical user interface. Now, one thing I will show you is you should kind of have an idea how to create these sort of generic shapes, and you know, these two as well. This is just a positional keyframe on the text. It's got that alphabet again. What I'm going to show you is how to make these little hexagons. So in case you did want to know, what I'm going to do is come to here, get my shape tool, and go to Polygon Tool. And if I click and drag, I've got a pentagon. And the way I make that hexagon is if I click down in the contents and then polystar and then polystar path, you've got points. If I just put that up to 6, it's now a hexagon, so it's got an extra one, okay? And I don't want to fill, so I'll click the word fill, hit the line, it's gone. I want a stroke, so let's turn that solid colour on, and I reckon 10, a stroke of 10 will be fine. Now let's go to the wiggle, let's go to the rotation of this, First of all, we'll want to put our anchor point in the middle, so if you hit the anchor point tool and then you can't see it, just hit contents and then we can see it again. Put that right in the middle, like so. Okay, now let's go back to the rotation, Alt click, and let's go wiggle, open brackets, let's say 4 times a second, and I want you to differ by 50, by plus 50 or minus 50, and close brackets. Okay, and now if we play, we've got sort of a random rotation on there to look as if it would be scanning a finger. So I'm going to scale this down to about 20. Ooh. To about 20. Okay. No, I think that's a bit too small. Let's go to 40. Okay, let's come back to the beginning. So there we go. We've got one for, let's say, the thumb. Let's rename it finger scanner, and then let's duplicate it 4 times. Shift select, and let's move them around. So let's go up. So moving the 4 of them together at the moment. Oop. And then each time I put one in position, I'm just going to deselect one, so it'll leave one there. And maybe let's put this one up a bit. I'll move them all down together in a second. Deselect one with Control and click. And there you go, there's one, and then deselect another. And something like that. So now I'm going to select them all and just move them all down a bit, like so. So that's, you know, generic hand shape. So what we can do is, with them selected, we can hit T, drag the opacity to 0, hit a stopwatch, come forward a few frames, like so, drag it up to 100. Now let's come forward to where the bar starts fading out, which is if we click the hand bar and hit U, we can see here are the keyframes. So we want this to then start, these finger scanners to start fading out, so we need to give it another keyframe at 100. So let's click down here, so we'll give it another keyframe of 100. Let's come forward, and then if we hit 0, it should fade them all out, like so. There we go, and then access granted comes on the screen. So let's give that a little playthrough. Fairly simple graphical user interface, but you know, there we go. If you so wish, carry on having a play around, trying to make something like, you know, add more assets like I have in this one. Maybe have a look on the internet and add some assets of your own. But that's it for this tutorial, so I hope you enjoyed and maybe learned 1 or 2 things from that, and I shall see you next time. Cheers.